We haven't changed the mission statement from the very beginning of this war that we didn't start and didn't want, the one that Hamas has forced us into. We said that we want to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime, which means that by the end of the war, they will not have the military capabilities nor the desire to hurt us again as they did on October 7th. We said that we want to bring all hostages back home and to make sure that Gaza will never, ever pose a terror threat to Israelis again.
There appears to be differing reports as to where we are in terms of a negotiation on hostages and where we might be in terms of a pause in the operation or indeed a ceasefire. What is the very latest that you can tell us?
We said in the past that we will agree to facilitate more humanitarian pauses in the fighting in Gaza for the release of more hostages. We said it back in November, and we still say it today. As you know, we are pursuing military efforts and diplomatic efforts behind the scenes, every possible avenue to bring to the release of our hostages. We want each and every one of our stolen people back home. I can say that as an Israeli, not just as a government spokesperson, I am very proud to be part of this nation that is committed to the principle of leaving nobody behind, and we're not going to leave them behind. Now, the terms that Hamas has presented so far in the negotiations that have been ongoing behind the scenes through international mediators are so far they have been delusional, as Prime Minister Netanyahu referred to them, and Secretary Blinken just a few days or weeks ago, rather, called them non-starters. We set very clear red lines for any potential framework that will see the release of hostages. We said that we will not agree to pull out IDF forces entirely from the Gaza Strip, nor will we agree to release thousands of Palestinian prisoners in exchange, because in other words, David, this would mean that we have given up on the goals that we have set forward for this war. And this is something that we will not agree to.
So right now, would it be fair to say that there is no imminent deal that is going to happen in the next few hours or even today?
Well, I can't talk to you about any time frame, but what I can say is that, the Israeli government, the war cabinet, the IDF brass, top brass, but also every soldier that is on the ground in Gaza, everyone is doing their utmost effort to create the conditions that could yield another framework of this kind, like the one that we had back in November. We saw the release of more than 100 hostages. Now, the only thing that we know works for a fact against Hamas is heavy military pressure. That is why we continue to hit them very hard. We're crushing them above the ground, under the ground. We're dismantling their terror infrastructure, their command chains, their battalions, and so forth. And this military pressure, combined with the diplomatic pressure that we're exerting in different avenues, we hope could yield another framework of this kind. Once we have something to make official, of course, we'll make an announcement, but that's not the case as we are speaking right now.
How much pressure is coming at you from your closest allies, America, etc., in terms of trying to get a deal done?
We have to remember that at the end of the day, Israel and the United States, we want the same things. We stand together united behind the goals of this war, the ones that I stated just a moment ago. We all want to see the hostages released. We all want to see Hamas eliminated, and we all want to see a Gaza that will no longer pose a terror threat to Israelis. And while we're pursuing these goals, both Washington and Jerusalem want to make sure that there's minimal civilian suffering and civilian casualty on the Palestinian side, as you know, which is exactly the opposite of what Hamas is trying to achieve here.
With that in mind, how difficult is it for Israel to go into Rafah in a meaningful way and avoid heavy loss of civilian life?
Obviously, it's a war, and because of Hamas's sick methods, that is a major challenge. Yes, the city is crowded, but we know what to do. We know how to operate. We know how to let civilians know when and where we want them to evacuate. We know how to facilitate these humanitarian corridors. That is something that we have done before when when there was heavy fighting going on in the northern parts and the central parts and even southern parts, of Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. The prime minister has ordered the military to present him with a plan, a strategic plan that is twofold. One is to facilitate the evacuation of civilians from the fighting zones, and second, to eliminate Hamas in Rafah, in this territory, because we still have 4 Hamas battalions operational there. We are not going to leave those untouched, not at all. And Rafah, to remind you, is where we just a few weeks ago we rescued 2 of our hostages in a very successful and precise operation, and it's a border city that borders Egypt, and a lot of the terror infrastructure and ammunition that funneled into Gaza over the years made its way into the strip through Rafah. It's not an issue that we're going to leave as it is right now. We have a moral duty to our residents of the South, that they will be able to return home safely.
And there is obviously still a determination to take out the leaders of Hamas, and Yahya Sinwar in particular. Where is the operation to get that done? How confident are you that the leaders who were involved in planning and orchestrating the October 7th massacre will be brought to justice?
Well, a few options here. They could either surrender, lay down their arms, raise the white flag and say, here we are, take us. We want to finish this war, and here are your hostages. But this will happen one way or another. I can tell you that Yahya Sinwar, Hamas leader in the Gaza Strip, David, he signed his own death sentence on October 7th.
In terms of the next days and weeks, what are the key considerations for the IDF as the international community piles on the pressure, but also you've expressed this determination to satisfy this moral duty that you have to get hostages out and to defeat the remaining battalions? How do you do that whilst also looking over your shoulder to Hezbollah and Lebanon?
So first, a lot of things to unpack here. You mentioned the international pressure. It's true. There is pressure from outside, but we're not fighting this. There's also support from outside. Which is a great thing to have on your side when you're fighting a very justified war like this one. But we're not fighting this war for support, nor are we going to stop it for the lack of support and increasing pressure. We're fighting this war that we didn't start and didn't want. I know that I keep repeating this, but it's very important that your viewers, your listeners will remember that. We're fighting to stay alive. It's as simple as that. We're fighting because we faced and we still face an existential genocidal threat called Hamas. And we have a duty to our people. Israelis, we want to live safe and in peace. And if we want to see a horizon for a better future between us and our neighbors, Hamas, they must be gone. Now, you also mentioned Hezbollah, another terror group that feeds off the Iranian regime, that is supported by them, gets its marching orders by them. And they have very similar methods of fighting Israel, just like Hamas. They're also embedded in civilian population in southern Lebanon and underneath civilian structures. We certainly hope that they do not drag us into a full-fledged war on another front. But if we are required to act decisively against Hezbollah militarily, certainly we will do that. I think it was our defense minister, Yoav Gallant, who said a few weeks ago that if Hezbollah wants to take it up a notch, we go up 5. There's no doubt here. But this can also be resolved diplomatically. We have 100,000 Israeli civilians, residents of the north of the country, who evacuated their homes after October 7th when Hezbollah decided to join in. So we promised them that they will be able to return to their homes and live there in safety and security. There's a UN